our next day as a best day. Both survival and growth of a business is based on this mantra. Our topic for the webinar today is data forecasting, a tool for economics and finance. At the outset, I thank to our Honorable President, Dr. Biswajit Patnaik, because of his strong inspiration, we are at this 30th webinar. Very successfully, our webinar team have launched 29 webinars and gathered a lot of appreciation. Today, we are meeting with the 30th webinar. We have chosen 3 of our panel speakers from 3 different areas. One from statistics, one from economics, and other from finance. The 3 speakers have long teaching experience as well as the research in their respective fields. We have today Dr. Priyaranjan Das. He is MSc Statistics, MPhil, MBA and PhD. He is currently working as an associate professor in PG Department of Statistics, Utkal University, Bhubaneswar. Dr. Das was the head of the department from 2017 to 2019 in Department of Statistics, Utkal University. Because of his strong leadership, in the year 2017, Statistics Olympiad was introduced in higher secondary level very first time in the Odisha state, and he will be our first speaker today. We are having today Dr. Sabat Kumar Digal, MCom, MPhil and PhD in Commerce. He started his career in teaching at Purulia College, West Bengal, and joined to his own alma mater, PG Department of Commerce, Utkal University in 2004. Currently, Dr. Digal is working as an associate professor in PG Department of Commerce in Ramandevi Women's University, Bhubaneswar. And our third panel speaker, Professor Dr. Sudhakar Patra, is MA, MPhil, PhD in Economics. Professor Patra joined into Odisha Education Service in 1990 and served in different government colleges in the state of Odisha, and then Sir joined in Fakir Mohan University, and currently Sir is working as a professor in economics in Barampur University. His keen interest area is econometrics. We hope Sir definitely adds substantial value to this webinar. I request all our participants to switch off their audio and video system during this webinar so that very smoothly we can conduct this program. So first of all, our panel speakers, Dr. Priyaranjan Das will speak, followed by Dr. Sabat Kumar Digal, and then Dr. Sudhakar Patra will address the webinar. At the end, we will have a question and answer session. I request all our participants to write the questions in the chat box in the middle, so no one should give the questions by words spoken. So all are requested to write the questions in the chat box only. And at the end, we will have our question and answer session, and thereafter we are to wind up our session. So now I request Dr. Priyaranjan Das to deliver. Dr. Das, please.
Thank you, sir. My respected faculties, my colleagues, and President ASBM, I am thankful to Professor Padmanabh Mohapatra sir for giving me a chance to interact with you through this webinar. And I am thankful to ASBM also for arranging 30 webinars during this lockdown period. This is a very heavy task, and this is due to the combined effort of all the faculties of the institution. So thank you, sir, for giving me a scope. Now my topic of discussion will focus on statistical aspects and statistical aspects of forecasting. Now today we shall discuss on data forecasting, a tool for economics and finance. Recently, we are coming across some forecasting statements that are available in websites. So first, let us focus on the Harvard Business Review. It was published on May 18, 2020. This is on why forecasting is so difficult in pandemic. So this pandemic, this is irregular and sudden and completely uncertain, and this introduced extreme uncertainty into the traditional forecasting methods. So handling uncertainty is a Herculean task while forecasting. So another, we can go through the Economic Times on 4th December, India to become 5th largest economy in 2025 and 3rd largest by 2030. So this is one of the predictions which was in just prior to this pandemic period. Another, in India economic snapshot, there was a prediction during the pandemic that supply chain disruptions have pushed inflation above the target range of central bank, that is RBI, and GDP is set to shrink by 10%. So this is one of the forecasting regarding the GDP. And another, there was a prediction by RBI that predicts the economy that stopped sinking in October projects growth in 3rd and 4th quarters. So these are the, and again the Hindu New Delhi edition, and this is a prediction by Oxford Economics. They told India's post-COVID-19 scars could be among the worst in the world. So this was the, and they have given the forecast on India's growth equilibrium. Again, another, the Business Insider, this India improves forecast of Indian economy. It improves forecast of Indian economy, sees GDP contraction of 9.4% for the financial 21. So these are the forecasted statements, but the most important factor in all these, that they all are based upon the economic variables which are very dynamic in nature. That is the most important point we should not forget while forecasting. So we should face a lot of challenge and difficulties in forecasting economics, particularly economic and business forecasting. So that means all the economic variables, they are dynamic properties, and some originate through microeconomic areas like finance and marketing also, they are related. Specific example we can consider inflation rate, unemployment rates, stock market returns, and market shares. So all these variables, they are dynamic. And second, why we forecast? We forecast to set the policy targets. It may be a short-term forecast or a long-term forecast. Specifically, these forecasts are done for designing or developing monetary policies by the central bank of different countries. Now, what are the challenges? If we go through the data, there are different economic variables which are used to forecast, and these economic variables, so for example, we can take the help of the time series method. So in time series, we assume that the value of the variable of interest is available to us or sampled at regular interval of time, but in a real sense, this does not happen. The economic variables, also the pattern of variation within the economic variables plays an important role in prediction. For example, the microeconomic aggregates, industrial, like industrial production, consumption, wages, they shows an upward trend pattern. Some of the variables like industrial production, tourism sector, tourism expenditure, retail sales, they shows the seasonal pattern of variation. And some shows the rarely strong typical behavior like for example the selling of new car and their registrations, they may be affected due to computer breakdown. So these are the variables and showing different types of patterns, and these are used in forecasting. So it is very difficult to handle these type of variables. Now the next challenge is wide variety of patterns. So large price movements like financial asset prices, and particularly they are asymmetric and non-linear behavior like unemployment. So there are a wide range of variation and patterns of variation among the economic variables. So next one, the time available to construct a forecast. So different variables, those are used for forecasting, they are not available in equal intervals of time. Some are available on daily basis, some are available on monthly basis, some are available yearly basis. So we have to, in order to predict, we have to estimate them or smooth them on the basis of equal intervals of time, and the statistical technique used for these different smoothing techniques are particularly exponentially weighted moving averages. So smoothing techniques are necessary to use in economic variables before using them for forecasting. Now, how to select a proper model for forecasting? So this is, so time series, they are observed at different frequencies. Like the estimates of GDP, measures of economic output, they are available per quarter. Inflation, they are monthly, data is available for inflation. Product sales, they are available for week, maybe, or stock prices, they are available daily. So the data they are available, they are for different periods of time, different time points they are available, but we have to combine them. Now for forecasting, we consider the time or the value at time t, it is related to the previous values. That means the values at some previous times. So let suppose the value of the variable that to be forecasted at time t is zt. So zt is the function of the previous k values, zt minus 1, t minus 2, zt minus k, and a random component et. this random component has mean 0. So we had a given set of values Z1, Z2, Zt, and we forecast these values, and so there is a difference, always there is a difference between the true value and the forecasted value, that is the forecasting error. So we have to forecast in such a manner that this forecasting error is to be minimized. So we predict the values for a lead time L when the time of origin up to T, that is available to us. That means using the values from time 0 to T, we have to predict the values after time T. So we have to define a forecast function for this, and the forecasted values will lie in between 20% or 50% limit, upper limit and the lower limit for these forecasted values. So we have to specify this limit. So less is the limit and more is the accuracy of prediction. So we cannot estimate the values which are exactly same as the true values. So there is always an error associated with this. So generally we use two different approaches. One is the time domain approach. It is due to Box and Jenkins. That is, we consider the concept of stationarity and non-stationarity, and the role of autocorrelation and autocovariance is determining factor for using these time domain approaches. We use the autoregressive integrated moving averages. Basically, this developed by Box and Jenkins in this time domain approaches for forecasting. And other one, the frequency domain approach, that is proposed by Priestley. Here, the value at any particular time is to be treated as a combination of sine and cosine waves. So that means it is a harmonic function. So our predictions or forecasting is based upon the harmonic analysis. So these two approaches, they have their merits and limitations. So basically we have a forecasting error, and cost of incurring this forecasting error is important while making the forecasts. So when we consider the auto correlations and auto covariances in time domain approach, we have to find the order of these auto correlations. That means to what extent the present value depends upon the past values. So suppose the value at time T, that is Zt, is a function of two previous years or previous time points, that Zt minus 1, Zt minus 2. So in this case, the autocorrelation of order 2, that is rho 2, should differ significantly from the other order correlations. So this role of autocorrelation is important in deciding the order to be used for forecasting. And the other, when we consider the combination of sine and cosine function, we should consider the frequency as well as the amplitude of occurrence, that is in the magnitude of displacement of the value from their mean position. So there are different tests for finding this amplitude or the magnitude of the difference and the phase differences. So due to the limitation of time, I should limit here, and I should limit on more rigorous mathematical analysis on these two approaches and the comparison. And due to shortage of time, so I should restrict Up to this, I am trying to avoid to use any mathematical equations and functions here so that you will not feel boring. Now, thank you for enjoying the lecture.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Priyaranjan Das. You have nicely presented the topic. You said the challenges of forecasting and challenges of forecasting modeling, and you discussed on different statistical approaches. Okay, so it was very nice presentation. Now I request our second panel speaker,
Thank you.
Dr. Kumar, to present his topic.
Thank you, sir. I am sharing my screen. Please see and let me just. So please tell me once my screen is visible to you, so that I can go ahead.
It's visible.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, okay.
Thank you. Respected Director Dr. Vishnu Patnaik, my fellow speakers and my senior members, Professor Sudhakar Patra, Dr. Priyaranjan Das, who just spoke, Dr. Padmanabh Mahapatra, all the faculty members of the department and of the university, all the participants, and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for actually inviting me. And I, at the outset, really thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my perspectives. As Dr. Priyaranjan Das mentioned, that he wanted to avoid a lot of calculations and lot of models, because it might sound a bit, it might sound technical. Doing that, I'm not using those. So what I do is that I say from the common man's point of view, those who are trying to understand finance. And it is when I say finance, it's not necessarily exactly the finance. So it includes a finance and also economics and a bit of other things. Because as in many times, Dr. Priyaranjan Das, while discussing, was mentioning that there is error term and that has to be avoided or it has to be minimized. So even to have financial results, we need to minimize that error, but I won't get into the technicalities. So this is what is the background. So having said it, what I do is that I have just structured, so to give a structure to my presentation, I have named it as forecasting in the age of digital humanities. I reiterate the word, forecasting in the age of digital humanities, some perspectives. Why is the digital humanities? We are all human beings. And then we are there surrounded by digitals, and here we have to forecast. So when we really forecast, we really depend on the data, the seminar topic or webinar topic, or we really depend on the digital ones, technology, or human aspect is there. That I'll try to say. I don't know how far I can really succeed in doing that, but that's what I have thought and I'm doing. So in case you find this presentation not very technical, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make it something which a common person having no knowledge or just a beginner in the finance can understand that. So taking this as a background, what I have done is that I have just kept few flow of thoughts. So data, what is data forecasting and how it is changing the economy, and few concerns and end note. All of us know what data. Today, the most valuable resource of the world is data, and it's not oil. There is a time when oil was the most valuable resource because that propelled the economy. But today, we have data which actually is propelling the economy. You look at the fight between America and China, or you fight between the companies, or the companies which are acronymed as FANG and BATS. FANG is, all of us know, Facebook, Apple, Google, and in BATS, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, all those. There's a fight because, or they have become the number one company, so the most respected companies in the world because of their control over data. They have so much access to data that they have become number one country, almost number one, you can see in their own field. And then what has happened is that these companies they have taken very less time to reach to the present level, whereas the most established companies, look at in India, Tatas, Birlas, Dalmias, they have taken years together to reach the present stage. So that is a power of data. And we also know that when you have data, then you have almost everything. You can decide whom to sell what, whom not to sell, whom to approach, whom not to approach, who likes what design, who likes what color, which color is appealing to whom, from Facebook, from WhatsApp, from social sites, everything we know that. And that has led to one economy called the data economy, and which is also known as a new normal. During pandemic, all of us know the new normal. We are not really knowing, or we do not really know that what is it going to be like a new normal, or what is really new normal. But that real understanding will come when we actually understand data. But this is very, very difficult to understand what data really is, because our Priyanjan sir has already mentioned that. So taking that into consideration, you can say that we have a digital university, digital universe, and it said that by 2025 there will be 180 zettabytes of data. And when I say zettabytes, 180 into 25 zeros, with not into 180 plus 25 zeros, that you see that how much is that. And it is said to have entire data, then it will take another 15 to 20 years. So now the quality of data also has changed. Now you see that it's a there is a rapid real-time flows and mostly unstructured in nature. And source is what? Even from trains, from wind turbines, from the toilets and toasters, all sort of devices are actually giving data. Earlier, to collect data, we had to send a questionnaire, we personally go, approach a lot of, but now it's not happening. Right? We, anywhere we go, any device we use, we are actually parting with our data. And that has made these companies like this, and then that actually has made all of us vulnerable also. And one thing before I proceed to next slides, I say that I'll be going on. So in case I'm crossing my limit and time, please remind me. If you are not reminding me, then I assume that everything is going smooth. Then you look at the most valuable listed firms in the world today: Alphabet, the parent company of Google, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Microsoft. They are considered as a God's eye views. And they have become so powerful that in many countries, Europe and America, there are antitrust laws. And recently, all the CEOs had been called. In America, you know that, so I'm not explaining on that. That's the power of data. And then here, what is happening? Because of this data, that we have data economy, many say that the only function of economic or finance forecasting is to make astrology look respectable. What I say, I repeat, the only function of economic or finance forecasting is to make astrology look respectable. Who says that? John Kenneth Galbraith, of one economist. Why is saying that many times we go for data crunching, but we go for data crunching, but the end use is not that. That means there are no real beneficiaries. Means those who should be benefited are actually not being benefited, but only one company or one person is being benefited. That's what is the case. Then there is why this is because there's aggregated activity of billions of people. What Priyaranjan sir was mentioning, that aggregated activities of billions of people are there, which are influencing everything. And when you have billions of people data being collected, so now how to really streamline those data and how to make sense of that, to say that how to delight the customers, how to make it useful to the end users, that is really a challenge. That's really a challenge. And so taking that into consideration, we can say that, so what should be our data forecasting? All of us know what is data forecasting. In finance terms, we say that we use the historical data or past data to determine the future course of action or future direction or the trends. And we have different types of data. I'm not going to focus on that. We all know that, be it a student or a faculty or anybody, we all know. But just to say that it could be that we have quantitative and qualitative data. There are different forecasting methods. There are so many. These are the easy ones, mostly used ones. So I have just included those. You can look at the right side. So it could be a straight line method or moving average, because in finance you have used that. Or you can go for simple linear regression or multiple linear regression, where, as I had mentioned in the previous slides, that we have billions of people's data which is being crunched to see what is its impact on one variable, maybe the end user. But ultimately, we find many times this data crunching is actually not helping the end user. So that's where the question of the delight your customers really comes, and are you really doing the right thing while going for the forecasting of data? That's what is the case is. And then now when you go for the forecasting, these forecastings generally, not exclusively, generally, these forecastings rely on two different predictive approaches. It might sound a bit technical, but they generally depend on two predictive approaches. One is theory based. What is theory based? In theory based, the most common one is that solo growth model. Solo growth model is a Robert Solow. He says that poorer countries should generally invest more and grow faster than the rich ones. I repeat, his theory is based on the poorer countries should generally invest more and grow faster than rich ones. So you know that when I said this, I read this line, I'm sure there are many questions that if poorer countries are going to invest more, where will they invest from? What is the source of investment? Where will they invest and how will they grow faster? But this is one model which is being used by all of us, also by students, research scholars, but of course in a different method. So this is what the case is, and this model to an extent also is being used by many central banks and also economic institutions slightly in a complicated manner by using complicated formulas. You find sometimes you find the good papers are the papers which have actually used large number of data and used very complicated tools. But I'm not against the tools, I'm not against the technology, but what I'm trying to say is that is it really making or is it really delighting the customer? And when I say that delighting the customer, is it really helping the end users for whom it is being made, for whom it is written? And then we are in that, we can say that we are using the dynamic stochastic general equilibrium models. So where we have all the models coming, I won't get into those. So here we are trying to anticipate the ups and downs of big economies by modeling the behavior of individual households. I repeat, we are trying to anticipate the ups and downs of big economies by modeling the behavior of individual households. What Priya Ranjan sir was mentioning, that error term. So here, what is the error actually? We are trying to find out where a where the economy of a country, be it a rich or poor, is heading, but it's not necessarily with the data that is available, but with something where that what is the behavior. So we are studying about the economy, about the countries, but we are dependent on the behavior. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I'm saying how to really establish a relationship on that so that the end user, the ultimate customer, will be benefited. So another one is the database, which all of us have been doing. So I am not going to discuss on that, but it is shared by one thought that how economies have behaved in the past. So many say we have a zero-based budgeting concept, that something has happened in the past may not necessarily help in the future, but we depend on that. I'm not saying we will not depend, but this is what a challenge for data forecasting. So now, when I go further, that what should be the data like, you see that we have just emerged. Even today, we are fighting. We are not able to decide that how much data are really sufficient enough for a prediction or for model building. There's a quarrel, and quarrel is what? Until recently, quarrel was what about whether data are singular or plural. But we have so many things on that, so many different phases. But due to this data, we have quantum computing. Today, data analytics, that quantum computing, as I had mentioned about the big companies, they have become all those powerful. All those companies have become all powerful because of this quantum computing powers. So now, if you look at in India, NRHM, National Rural Health Mission or National Education Policy, Manrega, Self-Reliant India, that's Atmanirbhar Bharat, or Vocal for Local, are all based on the outcomes of data crunching only. But question is, if there are strikes, oppositions for that, then why are those? Is it because data have not been crunched properly, or the end result of this data crunching is actually not benefiting the end users, or the delight the customers is missing? That's what I want to ask. So here in current scenario, I'm giving something which you might actually laugh, saying that what he's saying, I'm not talking about the big industries. Niranjan sir has already mentioned on that. I'm talking about the current scenario. See, we are just in a new year. I should have wished, but due to paucity of time, I haven't. Now you see that in new year, we have all gone for the new year wishes. But there are studies and the findings show that barely 8% of the new year resolutions survive until the end of January. But why I'm using this? I'm using this because many companies, sales models, many companies, production models, many companies, future targets or future strategies are based on new year resolutions also. Suppose we thought that this year people have decided to do that. Let's say a pandemic. I wanted to avoid this word, but let's say pandemic. Suppose people have decided to focus on the health. One has to understand, decided to focus on the health means they have decided to spend more amount on health or decided to spend more time on developing health. If this basic principle, basic parameter, the variable has not been actually finalized, not clear, then no matter what projections we have, no matter what crunching machines we have, those will give you erroneous results, and end users will not be happy, plus this will not be useful to the company which is doing. That's why I was saying. And you see that what they're saying, what are the results, why 8% of the new year resolutions survive only until the end of January? Because some goals are too ambitious. In new year, all of a sudden we are imbued with some festive forward. We think we can do it, but slowly it dies down. Then others simply set too many goals. Also, I'm sure most of us, those who are participating today, have that. And the biggest reason behind miserable failure in the changing a particular behavior is tightly woven routines. Say, I was saying that I want to focus on the health, but am I really in a position to spend time on health or not? Yes, when time comes, you have to. But today, am I really physically and mentally prepared for that? If we have not really studied how many are really physically and mentally prepared to go for this, then any business decision that we have taken on the basis of that people have gone for new year resolutions, those are going to become a failure. This is what I'm going to say, and that's where the data forecasting comes into the picture, and that's a problem. So here in economy, again, sir was saying there's an unpredictability in interactions between the pandemic. It's a very funny one had happened. I hope you remember in March, most of the sectors, particularly those sectors which were in common use, like cyclical sectors or cyclical stocks, fell down. They tanked like anything. But as time passed, come April, they started recovering. And then now you find many. You go to S&P, Standard and Poor 500, or even India BSE or NSE, they have reached the record levels. How can it happen when our GDP is in the negative zone? It doesn't grow as expected, and you know that purchasing power has gone down. You look at the your exchange rate between our currency with that of the developed currencies. That means everything is going in one direction, but stock markets are going in another direction. That means what is that? So this is the unpredictability. One can say the cycle, but how long does this cycle continue? Many say that because Joe Biden won the election, so people have become very optimistic. Then UK had a post-Brexit deal, so again investors have become optimistic. But again, some also say that no, we have a vaccine, so we are doing. But if you look at the vaccine, we know that those have not gone through the final trials. In normal cases, I'm not trying to sound pessimistic here, but just trying to say that what affects the forecasting, that they say that it generally takes about 10 years to know the effectivity of any vaccine. But we have few months in it, number one. Number two, then they're not saying it's 100% effective. No medicine, of course, can say that 100% effective. Number three, they also say that it will last only for 6 months. Another one, some companies say that their medicine has to be stored in the extra low temperatures. Do you really have that? But we are so optimistic. And what is interesting here is that government, in particular India, government is trying to protect the retail investors. But if you look at 2020 data, the retail investors' participation in the stock market has actually increased. And not only in India, even the S&P 500 companies stocks also participation of the retail investors has actually increased. So why it is? We know that they are not financially very aware, but still they want to participate. And tomorrow something happens, they are going to bear the losses. But are they really prepared? That means probably there is something wrong with the forecasting models. Probably there is something wrong with our way of forecasting, where we are giving them all the rosy pictures. We are not able to give them the reality. So there comes the role of data forecasting. And probably you and me, all of us, those who are speaking, those who are listening, and those who will speak later on, or those who will work, particularly research scholars or students, we all have the responsibility to see that we have proper data forecasting. And there, that I was saying the new normal, what is going to be new normal, we don't know. So I was saying that with this context, again, sir, if I have to stop, please stop me. With this context, I said there are a lot of metaphors used for data. Those who say oil, data is the new oil. So oil that time, they say it fuels the future. Then some say it's a sunlight because it can go any direction. Then some also use it as infrastructure. But why I'm using this, they use this as that. And because this data is malleable and it's non-rivalous. Like if you have data, it can be copied. It's not that if I use that that gets adjusted and another person cannot get that. So that's the beauty of this data. But again, there is something called excludable, that if you have proper technology, look at that, this one, encryption technology, like these are currencies, digital currencies, that some digital currencies have reached about 35,000. So some also say it's a private good. I'm not saying what is private and public good. We have sir, our next speaker will mention. And some people also have clubbed this. They're saying that it's a club good, something in between. So when we have so many definitions, so many explanations, then this itself is creating problem in explanation, in forecasting. That's what I'm trying to say here. So if you look at the trends for 2021, I'm not going to talk about it. There only one trend I'll say. This Tom Standage in the world in 2021 was talking about. One thing I'll say here, that here you see that we are all going bullish because vaccine is there. But there are many neglected risks such as antibiotic resistance. Nobody's talking about that. We are so bullish or we are so optimistic in our behavior that the very essential thing which is antibiotic resistant is being neglected. So when we are going for forecasting, these are something which have to be included. And now you see that in the forecasting, they are also using the counting raindrops by using mobile data. I'll not explain this, but they're going for counting raindrops. That's the level of data crunching. And then they also have the gadget forecast. You go to the Siemens, go to even GE, General Electric Company, they are doing in air travel, fare pricing is one which is also being done by this data crunching. And then the unexpected consumer behavior. That means when a consumer is most likely to purchase a product, that is also being done by data forecasting. It's not that you don't know. What I'm trying to say is that they even control the behavior, they even study the behavior, and then they go for these models which are known as decide models. This is what I'm saying. So this is what is called a forecasting. So we have a lot of data-driven changes. I won't elaborate on this because time is not there. So they are saying gold standard was one of the most respected standards after World War I. But today they're saying gold standard, had gold standard come today, it would have not been relevant at all. They're saying, and that's again data driven. So we need to really study why we have data, but what are those factors which really make gold standard irrelevant or redundant? Because there's a huge demand for data, huge demand for gold, but still it is not going to be relevant. Then stock markets in pandemic, I had already said, you know that oil price had slumped. I'm just giving you this. You can see the last line, last point. Oil price had slumped, again spiked. Then you look at the bond and equity sell-off was there. Then yield on 10-year American treasuries had gone down. Then there is a plunge in asset prices. But after some time, we found a fierce bull run in tech stocks. And then S&P created a record. Even not only that, Nikkei, Japanese stock exchange, also created a record. That when just few months had gone through all this, how could it be so? Now look at in Apple, in case Apple company in 2018, it was valued at about $1 trillion. but it gained about $750 billion this year. And Tesla, its increase was about sixfold in value, in terms of value market capitalization, which is more than $600 billion. And that is roughly the value of other seven most valuable car makers combined together. These are all new companies. So what is really making? What I'm trying to reiterate is that is there anything where you are really going wrong in that in forecasting? That's what. So this gives rise to the questions: what whether there is the rebound in risky assets amid fragile economic condition, whether there is a rebound, or these bubbles have formed a certain assets, or again these ups and downs can be explained by rapidly shifting fundamental factors. These are few questions. There are many questions, but these are few of the questions. So why these questions? If you look at this slide, you'll find that there are some unloved stocks. What unloved stocks? Banks and energy. Yeah, it's the last but one. Unloved stocks. These stocks have really rebounded. So something is wrong. Airbnb, you know this, that overnight stay app once, that was closed for a year, and now what happened? Its share price have left by about 115%. So taking all this into consideration, I'm going straight to the criticisms. Last but one slide, that you find that there are unsurmountable statistical problems, which if you read The Growth of Nations by Greg Munke of Harvard University, it comes. And then there's the overestimation of the future. And what overestimation? You see that IMF projections say that they combine this, but nobody. I go straight to the last one here, that no one expects a Spanish recession. That means nowhere you find that no projections have said that we are going for a recession, but we have had recession. And how many recessions? That we have about 220 times instances where you had gone for recession, but there were no forecasting. So in this case, actually, it makes it very tricky data forecasting. So with this, I leave to the organizers. I again thank all of you for having listened to me, and organizers for giving me a chance to actually put forth my views. So thank you very much. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Deagle. Very nicely that you have presented. You presented in a very technical manner. And in the field of economics and finance, the different forecasting models, that's particularly you have focused.
Yes.
Okay, so very much thanks to you. And now I request Professor Patra to have his lecture delivered.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my co-panelists, Dr. Priyanganjan Das and Dr. Sabat Kumar Digal, the moderator of the session, Dr. Padmanabh Mahapatra, the founder president of ASBM, Dr. Biswajit Patnaik, and all learned participants. So first of all, I would like to thank ASBM for giving me this opportunity to speak on this important topic. So I'll just give you the basics of forecasting. So I will try to find out some confusion that people have regarding this forecasting. I'll just go to my slides. Just 1 minute, I will go my slides. Hello, slides are visible?
Okay, sir, visible, sir, visible.
Okay. Okay, let me continue.
You can make it a full screen.
Okay, I'll make it full screen. Okay, just 1 minute. Okay. There is some problem. It's not letting me full screen.
No problem, go ahead then.
Okay, I'll just continue. Okay. So,
Now the PPT is not visible, sir.
just 1 minute, there is a problem. Somebody else is presenting? No. Anita Sahu is presenting. Just tell her to stop presenting. Somebody, Anita Sahu is presenting, so there is a problem.
Hello, sir.
Yes. Slides are visible.
And the slides are not visible.
One more participant has logged on to presentation. That's a problem.
Okay.
Or somebody, Anita Sahu is presenting, so that's a problem.
Sir, please remove Anant Sahu.
Okay.
He is presenting. He is presenting his skill. Yes, sir. Because of whom sir could not present. Yes,
Okay.
now clear, sir.
Resume presentation. Somebody started resume presentation. Tell her to stop.
So one of our participant for all this presenting is this slide. Other than the speaker, they say no participant should they say present. Here is slide.
Somebody is resume presentation. Okay.
Okay. You continue, sir.
Okay, now let me start. Now it's okay? Okay. So let me start. There are 5 steps of forecasting because I told I'll give you the basics. First step of any forecasting is define forecasting. Exactly, you have to know what you are going to do, who is going to forecast, and why this forecasting is made. Why this is very important. Am I audible, Dr. Padmanabh?
You are audible. You are audible.
Okay. Okay. First step is you have to understand what you are going to predict. Suppose you are going to predict what will be the GDP in 2021. Clearly, you have to understand whether you are going to predict the agricultural production in 2021 or 2022. Once you clearly understand what you are going to predict, then who is going to predict? Whether your prediction is made on behalf of the government or you are going to predict as a researcher, so that you have to define properly. Then next, why you are predicting. If you are predicting for the audience or for the policy, that you have to very well define in the very first step. Because what, who, and why, these 3 questions comes first in defining, predicting or forecasting. Because whenever you forecast in economics or finance, to know the future, any information about the future, you have to understand these things. Second step of any forecasting is statistical data. You have to gather generally historic numerical data, because normal prediction or forecasting is done on the basis of time series data. In second step, you have to gather historic data. Time series data means any series of data presented with reference to time. Suppose agriculture production of India from 1991 to 2020, that is a time series data. Foreign direct investment from 1981 to 2020, that is time series data. In second step of forecasting, you have to gather statistical data on a time series manner. If any single time period is missing, then you have to interpolate or you have to get the data, then only it will be done. Third step of any forecasting is exploratory analysis. So this is a confusion by many research scholars, whether we should have a graphical analysis before any regression analysis or not. So let me tell you, when I advise my scholars, graphical presentation is very important before going for the statistical model, because graphical presentation helps you to identify the extreme values. Because once you present a graphical line graph from 1961 to 2020, you will be able to identify the extreme values. Once you identify the extreme values, you can divide the entire 40 or 50 years time series data into 3-4 structural breaks. Suppose you are taking foreign direct investment from 1981 to 2020. 1991 may be a structural break when new economic policy came. Suppose you are taking agricultural data, super cyclone into 99 may be a structural break. So from a graphical method, you'll be able to know whether the time series has a structural break, so that you can divide the entire time series into two parts and you can make a forecasting in pre-period and post-period. A comparison can be made. So that is why before doing any regression models, we normally go for a exploratory analysis basing on a line graph. So to identify the extreme values or to identify the structural break, to identify some extreme events happening. Next, what we do, we always go for a descriptive statistic like mean, median, mode, or coefficient of variation, because CV and mean, these two are very important to identify whether the time series is stationary or non-stationary. If the time series is non-stationary, we cannot run any regression as per econometric methods. So that is why graphical methods and descriptive statistics precedes any econometric model or statistical model. So whenever we do any research for prediction, we do these two types of analysis as a basics before any regression analysis: graphical line graph, then you go for some descriptive analysis to identify some extreme events. For this, we can go for decomposition, whether the series of data are consistent or not, if there is any seasonal movement of data, if there is a movement of data according to business cycle, that can be identified from a graphical method. So third step of any forecasting is go for preliminary analysis before model fitting, so that it will help you to break the entire time series into 2-3 parts, and you can use different statistical method or econometric method for this. Fourth step is fitting regression model. Once you identify why are you forecasting, second step, you have gathered the data and identified which one is your dependent variable, which one is independent variable. Then you go for graphical methods as the third step of prediction. Once graphical methods help you to identify this time series, its nature, and divide them into 2-3 parts, then you go for a model fitting. So this regression is the technique by which you can go for forecasting. But there are a lot of confusion among the scholars, which type of regression to be used, how many variables to be used, whether we should go for a linear regression or a non-linear regression, whether we should go for a simple regression or multiple regression. So this is the most core of our forecasting analysis, where we, the statistician econometrics, give you a clear idea which type of regression model should be used for forecasting. Because regression model is simple, establish a relationship among the independent variables and dependent variable. Suppose I am predicting agriculture production in India in 2022. My agriculture production will be my dependent variable. Independent variables will be fertilizer used, rainfall, temperature, pesticides used, insecticide use. These may be my independent variable. The question is whether I should go for a linear model or not. So my suggestion will be to all research scholars and teachers present here, don't go for a linear model or don't decide on a non-linear model on your own. So always use a robust method of analysis. Use 6-7 different types of regression models. Look at their coefficient of determination. Wherever your R bar square or R square is high, go for that model. Simple deciding linear model or assuming a straight line relationship among the independent variable, dependent variable is not a good research at all. So that is why whenever we forecast any variable, first you have to decide whether you should go for a linear regression model or non-linear regression model. Normally in economics, what we do, we go for 8 or 9 different types of regression models, starting with a linear regression model, quadratic, hyperbolic, inverse regression model, semi-log regression model, log linear regression model, log quadratic regression model. Then we compare the R square value in all regression models. So then we decide which regression model is best suited for which type of data. For example, for agriculture production data, maybe our quadratic regression model is most suitable. Maybe a double log regression model is most suitable. We should go for non-linear regression models. So my suggestion to the researchers, when you have a confusion whether you should take a linear regression model or non-linear regression model for forecasting, always try and settle down 6-7 different types of regression model and compare their R square value. Then you decide which regression model to be used. So this is one. Number 2, simple or multiple regression models. Whenever we have 6-7 independent variables, we have one dependent variable, we normally go for a multiple regression model. The question is, there may be 10 or 12 or 15 regression independent variables. How many independent variables to be used in forecasting? How many are not to be used? That is why we always go for a stepwise regression model. What is stepwise regression model? Suppose you have identified 6 important independent variables. First, you take one independent variable, one dependent variable on the regression, look at the value of coefficient of determination. If you find your coefficient of determination is 0.6, then you add one more independent variable and look at the value of R square. If your value of R square increases to 0.7, then that is also a relevant variable. Then you add the fourth variable, fifth variable. As long as your R square goes on increasing, those variables are relevant and important variables. Moment your R square decreases, whenever you add a particular variable, then you can think that variable is irrelevant. So suppose you have 10, 12, 15 variables. So don't run a multiple regression model without examining the stepwise regression. So my suggestion would be in forecasting to do a stepwise regression so that your regression equation or estimated regression equation can be more accurate. Once your estimated regression equation are more accurate, give the values of independent variable, you can accurately predict the value of the dependent variable. That is my suggestion. So whenever there are multiple regression model, you always go for a stepwise regression model that will improve your research value. That is my suggestion. Next comes, whenever there is a long time series for 1961 to 2020, it becomes 60 years. There may be some structural breaks. Like you can take 1980, a new government came, suddenly there is a change of data. In 1991, EU economic policy came, there may be structural break. So always use a dummy variable regression model, divide the time series into two parts. Then you can predict one part before 1990, one part after 1990. So you can use 0-1 dummy variable, independent variable regression model. Suppose your dependent variable is binary, 0-1, having a house, not having a house, poor or non-poor, then you can use the probit model, Tobit model, logic model. These are the things. The question is, whenever you run a regression model, first you have to examine whether your regression model is good fit or a bad fit. So once your regression model is accurate, then predictions can be accurate. So always look at your regression model and look at the coefficient of determination, either R square or R bar square. If it is 0.8 or more, or it is 0.9 or more, you can simply say that your regression is good fit regression model. Good fit regression model means you have properly included the relevant variables as your independent variable. If your R square in a time series data you find extremely low, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, then you are not including some of the important relevant variables in the regression model. So always look at your R square value. If it is high, then go for this. Because in any kind of prediction, given the values of independent variable, if you are predicting the dependent variable, your regression model must be accurate and it should be a good fit regression model. So suppose you are forecasting. Fifth step, I told the first step, you have to define your forecasting. Second step, you have to collect your historical data, time series data. Third step, you have to go for preliminary analysis like your line graph and descriptive analysis. Number 4, you have to define regression model whether you are going for linear or non-linear, whether you are going for simple or multiple, whether you are going for a structural break or seasonal analysis. We use dummy variable regression model. Once you decide which type of regression model you are going to use, then you can make a forecast. Forecasting is done only after getting the estimated equation. So once you get the estimated equation, you take the values of independent variables. Suppose independent variable is your time. So you put the time, then predict your dependent variable. That will be, I've taken simple estimated equation. Suppose this is a demand equation I'm taking, y is equal to 15 plus 2p. You give a value of p, you just simply predict the value of y. This is simply a prediction or simple finding out dependent variable on the basis of independent variable. Suppose my p is here is t. I have taken 2011 to 2020. 11 I take 1, 12 2, 20 is 8 or 10 I take. So 21 will be my 11, 22 will be 12. So put this value as independent variable position time variable, and you can do this as, and these things can be done very well in eViews or Stata you can use. So you can decide which type of model you are taking, quadratic model or log linear model. I will advise the research scholars always go for a log linear regression equation. You take log of both independent variable, dependent variable. If you are handling large size data, suppose you are dealing with money supply, investment, national income, So always go for a double log regression model. This will help you to get the coefficient of this regression model will directly give you the value of the elasticity. That will help you in forecasting. So in forecasting, these are very important things in. So one of the important confusion among many scholars. So whenever you have 2, 3, 4 variables, you have to decide which one is your independent variable, which one is your dependent variable. Suppose I am finding out relationship between foreign direct investment and my national income. Whether foreign direct investment influences national income or national income influences foreign direct investment. Many times I am in confusion which one is my independent variable, which is my dependent variable in a regression model. So that case you can use a grandeur causality test, which is extremely used in econometric model. And once you use this grandeur causality, it helps you to identify which one is your dependent, which one is independent variable. This is done in eViews and Stata you can do. And another important regression is a vector autoregression. Why we use vector autoregression? Because we have to have 2 types of lag model. One is called vector autoregression model and other is called distributed lag model. Here what we do, we never assume instantaneous relationship between independent variable and dependent variable. If you are taking independent variable for 2020, dependent variable for 2020, your independent variable may be 2019. Because foreign direct investment in 2019 may have some impact on gross domestic product in 2020. Any investment in school education in 1918 may have impact in 2020. So always we do not take dependent variable at time period t, independent variable at time period t. So that is why we always run this regression for forecasting based on lag values. And there are 2 types of lag value models. One is called vector autoregression, where we call VAR modeling, where we take independent variables in time lag, t-1, t-2. Suppose I want to know what is the impact of urbanization on GDP of India. So urbanization in 2016 and 17 may have impact in 2020. So that is more reality. So many research scholars run in instantaneous relation. I advise do not run any instantaneous relationship. Always go for a vector autoregression where the lag values of independent variable or independent variable may have impact on dependent variable. Even you can go for a distributed lag model. I have given 2 examples of distributed lag model. The consumption in 2020 may be influenced by income 2019. Here consumption C at time t is a regression model of income at time t-1. So this is how I can make a regression model. Even my demand function, which I predict in market research, my demand in 2020 may be influenced by the price in 2019. So many kind of, this is a regression model we deal with econometrics. So that is very important in econometric models. So my question is, when we run any kind of regression model, many people ask how far your regression or prediction is accurate, how far your forecasting is accurate. So that is why there are some points which must be remembered. Whenever we run a regression without understanding the nature and characteristic of independent variables, so we run into a spurious regression, which many of our research scholars do. Whenever they have some independent variables and dependent variable, immediately they run a regression without testing the independent variables. Suppose I tell you simple running a regression model of export and import, or you are running a regression model of GDP. GDP depends on foreign direct investment, money supply, inflation. There are many more variables. So you have to test those variables whether they are fit to be regression independent variables or not. Otherwise, this is called spurious regression. What is spurious regression? If you are running a non-stationary time series data, you are taking time series data which are non-stationary, it leads to spurious regression. A stationary time series is a series where mean and variance remain constant. A non-stationary time series is where mean and variance do not remain constant over a period of time. So in that case, you have to convert a non-stationary time series into stationary time series. Then only you can go for a regression. So here we use augmented Dickey-Fuller test. Augmented Dickey-Fuller test will help you to convert a non-stationary time series independent variable into stationary time series by taking fast difference or second order difference. So that is a precaution I'm giving to all people who are engaged in forecasting, that always go for converting the non-stationary time series into stationary time series before running any regression. This is what 60% of our researchers doing their PhD thesis or even publishing the research papers, they do not make this conversion. So this will lead to problem of multicollinearity. So a lot of problems come. So once your time series becomes stationary, then only you run regression. Otherwise, your time series will not be accurate. So my submission in forecasting is your independent variable is time variable. Your dependent variable is any economic variables, or you take some independent variables as any kind of variables you are taking. So you have to take a lot of precaution in making econometric models or economics model. So very well you have to define, depending on nature of data, you have to decide which type of regression model you take. For God's sake, do not always take a linear regression model, because once you take a linear regression model, assuming a straight line relationship, which is completely not real at all, then all your predictions will be wrong. So that is a quadratic model is little better, or log linear model is better. Suppose your dependent variable have small numbers, independent variable has large numbers, you can go for a semi-log regression model. That will be much better. So my suggestion is to have a robust econometric analysis or economic analysis. Whenever you are doing prediction or forecasting, try with 6-7 different types of regression model. All these types of regression model are available in SPSS, eViews, Stata. Then look at their values of R-square. Then settle down which model is best suited to your data that are available. Second, I told always go for a vector autoregression, because instantaneous relationship taking YT price today and demand today, that may not always be good. Or price today, production today, market analysis, that may not be good. Always go for independent variables 1 year back, 2 year back, 3 year back, so that lag values of independent variable can give accurate prediction of dependent variable in a regression model. This is number 2. Number 3, don't assume a particular variable is always dependent and these are variables always independent based on literature review. Many times we find there may be bidirectional relationship between independent variable and dependent variable. Whenever there is a bidirectional relationship or unidirectional relationship, then only settle down which one is independent variable, which one is dependent variable. And always I say, you go for a structural analysis. A long time series analysis may not be consistent at all. For example, I told money supply from 1961 to 2020 may not be a consistent time series to make a prediction. Even agriculture production from 1971 to 2020 may not be a consistent time series to make predictions. You can divide the entire time series with structural breaks. Wherever there is uneven, wherever there is extreme values, that you can take a structural break and make an analysis. For example, 2007, there was a depression in the world. You can take any kind of finance data, 2007 as a structural break. 1991 to 2007, one series, then 2007 to 2020, another series, then make predictions of both the series. That will be much better. So these are the precautions I am giving you, so that whenever you make any prediction based on time series data or any prediction or forecasting based on one time variable independent or other variables, then you have to take all these regression. Otherwise, your regression is going to be spurious. Many times I found students are making regression analysis, even their R-square value or coefficient of determination is 0.3, 0.4. We accept low value of R-square in cross-section data. But whenever there is a time series data, we expect your coefficient of determination to be more than at least 0.8, so that you can have a good fit regression equation. There are a lot of things to be done about regression. Regression itself takes a lot of time, because without regression, forecasting is not possible. Only line graph doesn't help you to make accurate forecasting. Line graph, even your descriptive statistics and your regression, in regressions, choosing an appropriate regression model and selecting appropriate independent variables and checking the stationarity of time series data, these are the 3 precautions I have given, which will help you to make your regression and forecasting more accurate. I think I will not take much time. Whenever I will get more time, I will go to each aspect. Can be 6-7 hours of discussion. Even your lag variable regression model can be 6-7 hours discussion. So I will not go much, but for the preliminary methods, I say, don't settle down with a regression model on your own without testing the stationarity, without testing whether it's a linear or non-linear relationship, without testing which type of regression model is most suited, without taking a lag model, do not settle down with a simple instantaneous relationship between independent variable. Otherwise, all your predictions will not be accurate at all, because there are many predictions we see in India, they fail to give the accurate predictions. So a lot of precautions to be done, then only your regression can be much better. Thank you very much. I think that this is where I stop here right now. And I thank ASBM for giving me this opportunity. And if I get time in future, I'll go to each aspect in detail so that the learners or audience can better understand what type of, how the forecasting can be done with the help of econometrics. Thank you very much. Over to Padmanabh sir.
Thank you very much, sir. With a very little time, very nicely you have presented very technical aspects in a very theoretical manner. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
So now the time is for the question answer session, but we have not received any questions so far. Only 2 questions was received, and that was meant for Professor Das. And perhaps Professor Das has given the answers by the chat box. I hope the 2 participants who have questioned him, so they might have got the answers. And so far no such prominent questions we have received. If any question will be there, we will allow only 1 minute. If any question will be there in the chat box, so we can take up that. So one question is received from Guru Prasad Das. My question is to Professor Patra. How to forecast the missing data? Is there any way to recognize the missing values? What are the tools we will use for that?
Okay, so whenever there is any missing data, the appropriate method is called interpolation. We have 2 statistical techniques of interpolation and extrapolation. Suppose you have agricultural production of India from 1981 to 2020. The agriculture production data of 1996 is missing. So for that, there is a statistical technique called interpolation. Based on data before 1996 and after 1996, there is a technique by which you can interpolate the missing data. This is one technique. Second technique is, suppose you simple draw a line graph. So line graph is from 1981 to 2020. So automatically years will come in x-axis. In y-axis, your values will be reflected, and automatically in particular missing year 1996, you can find out which is the most suitable data. Or there is a time series data from 1981 to 2020. So you take time as 1, 2, 3, 4 like this. Suppose time is 1, 2, 3, 4, 38. A dependent variable is your agriculture production. So your agriculture production data for the year 14 is missing. So put T is equal to 14. Then you can get the agriculture production data. Once you fit a regression equation on a time series data, simple put the values and you can get the answer. Either you can go for interpolation method, or simple draw a line graph and predict the find out the missing value. That will help you, because that will be based on entire 38 years, 40 years, and you can simply interpolate the missing data. That is the technique that we use in prediction.
Another question from our other participant, Mr. Ali. So he want to know about the difference between the linear and non-linear regression model. So in this platform, I hope within a very short span of time, it may not be answered. Still, I am asking to Professor Priyaranjan Das to tell something on this.
So, sir, so simply, thank you. So linear regression model, but with linear and non-linear, suppose y and x, they are 2 variables. The linear regression model between of y on x, y equal to a plus bx. If we consider, suppose transform this x to take x square, y to suppose x square equal to z or root x equal to z, then y equal to a plus bz, then it is also linear. So why it is linear? The linearity is due to the linear relation on the coefficients, not on the variables. So the coefficients a and b, they are with power 1. So we can consider y equal to a plus bx square. This is also a linear relation, because we can transform x square into z, so that it can be y equal to a plus b into z. So linearity relation means the relationship between the coefficients only, not on the variables. Hello.
This is the time now to wind up the session. Hello.
Hello.
Your participant opened his microphone. Please switch off the microphone. Switch on the microphone. Please switch off. Okay, so the data forecasting is no doubt. Subject till all our panel members, they have tried to tell different aspects of the data forecasting in a very nice manner, and all the three participants, they have presented the very technical aspects in a very theoretical manner, so that we have came to an end within a very short span of the time. And this business the data forecasting, particularly we are using in the field of economics and finance. So different ways of its use are there: demand forecasting, sales cost evaluation, business valuation, forecasting of future data, future financial statements forecasting, and inventory planning, stock and security valuation. Similarly, in the field of economics also, particularly in forecasting this public revenue, employment, inflation, agriculture, and other economic factors, we are using this business forecasting. So the scope, no doubt, that's very broad, but within a very short time. So our panel speakers, they have nicely presented on different aspects. Now it is the time to wind up our session. We are thankful to Professor Dr. Sudhakar Patra. Sir has accepted our invitation and presented very nicely. We are thankful to our other two panel speakers, Dr. Das and Dr. Diggle, for their presentation and support. We are also thankful to our respected President, Professor Biswajit Patnaik, and our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Kalyan Shankar Ray. Again, we are thankful to our Pro-Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Falguni Ranjana, for our continuous guidance and support. And we are very much thankful to our participants. And we are also thankful to our webinar team members and members of the Infotech Cell for their technical support. Once again, thanks to all. And the session is closed now. Thank you to all.
Thank you, sir.